After I posted the song my boyfriend wrote online, people discovered it was actually a piece he had written for his first love. Suddenly, I became the butt of everyone's jokes. The song's beautiful, too bad it's not for you. He's held on to her memory for 7 years. How many years do you think he'll remember you? I'm telling you, there's a woman in his heart, and it's not you. Everyone said I was the clown in this relationship. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to break up with him. After all, the only reason I chased him for so long was because he had a pair of eyes exactly like someone else's. Chapter 1. When I was moving, I found a sheet of music in my boyfriend's drawer. I casually snapped a picture and posted it online, not expecting it to blow up. Found in my boyfriend's drawer, can any music expert tell me what song this is? The top comment currently says, "Aw, I've heard this one before. Back in the day, our school's heartthrob played it at the anniversary celebration for his girlfriend." Clearly, that heartthrob's girlfriend wouldn't be posting a sheet asking what it was. Suddenly, the comments exploded with every kind of reaction. Some mocked me. Some pitied me. Some were outraged on my behalf. I was still scrolling through the never-ending replies when Samuel opened the door. Chapter 2. He wrapped his arm around me and kissed my chin. "What are you looking at?" I pointed to a particular comment. "He kept the sheet all these years. Your boyfriend must still really love his ex, maybe even more than he loves you." He stared at the screen for a long time, then reached out with his well-defined fingers and turned it off. "Why did you post my music online? Stop looking at all this nonsense." I looked up at him, eyes steady. "Do you still love her, Samuel?" He didn't reply, just silence. Long, deep silence. There's a small mole by the corner of his eye, like a star fallen from the Milky Way. After a while, he reached up and pinched my cheek. "What do you want for dinner?" "I'll cook." God. I wanted to tell him, "Samuel, your change of subject is pathetic." Chapter 3. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching him move around. Actually, he's not exactly like that person. For example, he's a great cook, and his personality is softer than it seems. But he is like him. His mannerisms, his gestures. That's why I've clung to him for 2 years. I still remember the 6th time I waited on his way home from work, shoving a bunch of bright daisies into his arms, telling him, "Teacher, I still can't get that Chopin nocturne right." He sighed and gently plucked off a daisy petal. "So how else do you want me to teach you?" I leaned in, hands behind my back, lips almost brushing his. I heard kissing helps brain function. "Wanna give it a try, teacher?" His ears turned crimson, but his eyes were bright, like a galaxy. Then he really leaned down and kissed me. Like that? Back then, I didn't know how much I resembled his white moonlight from abroad. Didn't know the scar on his wrist was something he carved for that white moonlight. Chapter 4. Samuel. Let's say if your ex and I fell into the water at the same time. During dinner, I lazily chewed on my spoon, acting dramatic. Who would you save first? Her. I didn't expect him to answer so quickly. He blinked. Why? Because you talk too much. Saying that, he placed a peeled shrimp into my bowl. I stuffed it into my mouth, but it tasted like nothing. Even though I knew he was probably joking, half serious at most, I still felt an emptiness in my chest. I think I've really started to like Samuel, and that's not good. They say the one who falls first always loses. We were supposed to just be stand-ins for each other. It's safer that way. I finished the meal in silence. He looked completely unbothered, reviewing his lessons at the piano that night, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. His slender, defined fingers flowed across the keys. He looked impossibly good. Samuel teaches piano at a university. A single concert ticket to see him perform starts at 1,000 yuan, and yet he casually plays for me, while I complain it's hurting my ears. So I quietly slipped behind him and hugged his waist, mischievously whispering, "Teacher, won't you teach me too?" And honestly, I don't even know how I ended up pinned against the piano. His kisses trailed down from my jawline. The curtains were drawn, but moonlight still spilled in. At some point, someone pressed a heavy low note, filling the room with a deep rumble. I pressed against his chest. "Not here. Your piano. It's expensive." He looked down at me, eyes serious, then kissed me softly and repeatedly. "It's okay. Later." As I held onto his neck and leaned back, I caught sight of the dream catcher hanging by the piano, barely hanging on. The same one he always kept. No need to ask who gave it to him. In the soft rain, I brushed a white feather on it with my finger and whispered hoarsely, "This dream catcher is so old. Should we throw it out?" Even in such a quiet, intimate moment, he still wouldn't give me a straight answer. After a pause, he replied softly, "No." Chapter 5. The post I made online kept gaining attention. By the afternoon of the next day, I received a private message. "Hey girl, I was your boyfriend's classmate in university. I know some stuff about him and his ex. Want to hear it? Honestly, I kind of feel bad for you." It felt like Pandora's box. Even though I knew it wouldn't be anything I'd like to hear, I still couldn't resist the urge to know. So that afternoon, I sat in the corridor next to the convenience store and read every word about him and that girl. I remember back then, they were pretty well known at our school. He was the piano prodigy. She was the literature department's beauty. They'd known each other since childhood, real childhood sweethearts. One year at the school anniversary concert, he played a song just for her on stage. He composed it himself and sang it to her. It even got a bit popular locally. They said he could have made money if he released it, but he said he wrote it for her and only she could hear it. My roommates and I were so jealous until right before graduation. Something happened, no one knew exactly what, and the girl wanted to study abroad. It turned into a big scene. In the end, they broke up. I heard he went crazy trying to get her back, but she still left. Honestly, I think your boyfriend really loved his ex. That kind of love, time can't erase it, and years can't wear it down. Think about it, he went that far for her. You deserve to know. When I finished reading the last line, I took a deep breath. I couldn't say exactly how I felt. My chest tingled, and I had to admit, this did sound like something Samuel would do. He's always looked at someone else through my eyes. I knew it. After a pause, I asked, "Do you have a photo of that girl?" "Hang on. I think I have one from a spring outing. Let me check." About 20 minutes later, she sent an old photo. The quality was poor, but you could still make out the girl she circled. She was beautiful, long hair, leaning on a younger Samuel's shoulder, smiling radiantly. I traced the screen with my finger, then looked up and saw my own reflection in the glass. No wonder. I did look quite a bit like her. Chapter 6. I don't even remember how I got home. Passing by a hair salon, I pointed at a picture and told the stylist to cut it short, right above the ears. I think it was the first time in my life I'd ever gone with short hair. Looking at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the person staring back. I didn't even look like that girl anymore. I didn't know what Samuel would think when he saw me, so I sat at home and patiently waited. But by past midnight, the only thing that arrived was a drunken man. He must have had some dinner party or drinks tonight. When he walked in and saw me, he froze for a moment. I thought he might say something, anything, but no, he just stumbled forward and leaned into me, muttering my nickname, Nicole. His breath hit the skin of my neck, carrying the heavy scent of alcohol, mixed with the familiar cedar wood on his coat. He hugged me tightly, and in the end, we both collapsed onto the sofa. But the second time he spoke, he called me Olivia. That name, I remembered from earlier. Olivia was the name of that girl. His kisses trailed down my neck. He must have been truly drunk. His fingers twirled my hair as he kept calling her name over and over. Love you. Miss you. Need you. Word after word. I knew. Even though he was staring at me with those eyes full of emotion, the words weren't meant for me. In his arms, I clutched the edge of his coat and turned my head slightly, staring at the dim yellow light by the entrance. I said softly, "Samuel, look carefully. I'm not Olivia. I cut my hair. Your Olivia had long hair." He stared at me for a few seconds, then silenced me with a kiss. Just like that. Not even letting me speak. Chapter 7. I don't know how long we went at it last night. I'm a light sleeper. So by dawn, I was already awake again. The rain pounded against the window violently. I remembered the forecast had mentioned a heavy storm. He was still holding me tightly, wrapped in thick blankets. Last night had drained me so much, I didn't even know how he got me into bed. As I lay there listening to the storm, the doorbell suddenly rang downstairs. At first, I thought I was hearing things, but a few seconds later, it rang again. I squinted, too tired to get up, so I nudged the man sleeping beside me. Samuel, someone's at the door. He reached over and ruffled my hair sleepily, pulling me closer into his arms. Clearly, he wasn't fully awake, but the doorbell kept ringing. I kicked his leg lightly. Samuel, go answer it. The difference with this man was, he didn't get cranky when woken up. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at me, then got up and did what I asked. Sometimes, he really does listen to me. With that thought, I burrowed deeper into the warm bed, head spinning, wondering who could be ringing our bell so early. But after a while, he still hadn't come back. I started to worry. I grabbed the nearest coat, threw it over myself, and made my way down the stairs. Samuel, who is it? The moment I turned the corner, I froze. The rain outside kept pouring, wild and loud, and standing at the door, completely soaked, was a girl in white, long hair clinging to her face. Sometimes you just know. The moment I saw her, I knew. It was her, the one Samuel longed for, couldn't forget, Olivia. She looked pale and pitiful, staring at him with tearful eyes. Samuel, please don't hide from me anymore. This time, I'm not leaving. I really mean it. Please, don't be with anyone else anymore. Chapter 8. I stood across from the girl, separated by the curtain of falling rain. Her eyes were clear, too clear. When she looked at me, there was nothing guarded in her gaze, nothing defensive. It was the kind of pure curiosity that didn't even register me as a threat. And why would she? Samuel would risk his life for her. She held all the cards. I tightened my grip on the handrail without thinking. I raised my voice slightly, trying to sound casual, indifferent. Seems like someone you know. Samuel, aren't you going to invite her in? I thought if I acted gracious enough, it wouldn't sting so much inside. But the tremor in my voice betrayed me, and it rattled everything in my chest. As if my words snapped him out of a daze, Samuel suddenly slammed the door shut. I hadn't expected him to be so cold, leaving his first love standing in the rain. The storm outside hadn't let up. I stepped toward him, standing beside him, reaching for the door. She's out there in the rain. It's not right to leave her like that. Then, his hand was at the back of my neck. His fingers were damp from the rain. He pinned me gently against the door and kissed me. I stared at the raindrops clinging to his lashes. Shoo, don't make a fuss. His hoarse voice pressed against my skin, nestled in the curve of my neck, and in his heavy breath, I could feel the storm inside him. It wasn't that he didn't care. He cared too much. Chapter 9. In the following days, I started seeing that girl around Samuel more and more. On his way to work, on his way home, near his office, she kept appearing like she was deliberately cornering him. Samuel, can you please forgive me? Samuel, how long are you planning to live with that woman? Samuel, you don't love me anymore? I don't believe it. Honestly, I should have ended things with Samuel peacefully. We both knew we were using each other as stand-ins, but I couldn't do it. By the time I realized I was truly attached to him, it was already too late. Like today, after spending the entire morning making him a homemade lunch, I went to find him, and there she was again, in white. She rested her chin in her hand, watching him eat slowly like she'd finally won him back. Even her hair looked like it smelled of sunshine. Samuel, admit it, you like my cooking more, don't you? That woman doesn't know how to cook like I do, right? She chirped nonstop, while Samuel quietly finished his food without saying a word. But silence was enough of an answer. Samuel was always gentle with me, but with her, he was cold and distant, and yet I knew that coldness meant he cared. He cared that she left him. He cared that she abandoned him. Someone once told me that sometimes hate burns deeper than love. I tightened my grip on the lunchbox in my hands, opened my phone, and messaged him. Samuel, what are you doing? He always replied quickly, just like now. He looked down, saw my message, and typed back, eating. Are you eating alone? He stared at the screen for a long time, and I waited. Outside the window, I watched him. My heart thumped hard in my chest. Then I received one word. Yeah. See? Even Samuel, who never lies, lied to me. All because of that woman who clung to him, even when he looked cold. His instincts still moved to protect her. Chapter 10. I forgot my house key again. Frustrated, I sat down on the steps outside the door, the lunchbox I made resting on my knees. Honestly, I'm not very good at cooking. The food didn't look great either. The little bear-shaped rice balls were crooked and clumsy. Almost pitiful. The longer I looked at it, the more my eyes stung. Tears fell onto the lunchbox. I couldn't even tell why I was crying. Maybe because just last week, Samuel and I were planning a trip together. Maybe because I had genuinely started thinking about marrying him. But now, I know, it's all gone. That girl is slowly eating away at Samuel's heart. She and Samuel share a whole history of memories. And I have nothing. I don't know how long I sat there on the stairs. When I finally came back to myself, I heard the low, husky voice of a man. What are you crying for? I looked up and fell straight into a pair of calm, water-like eyes. He reached out and gently wiped my cheek. Who upset you? Without waiting for an answer, he scooped me up and unlocked the door, carrying me inside. Once in the entryway, he pinned me lightly against the shoe cabinet. His lips landed on my bare skin, soft, almost tender, so I tugged lightly at his sleeve and asked, Samuel, do you still love Olivia? But of course. Samuel's pupils always flinch a little when he hears her name. Yes or no, it should have been such a simple answer. But he stayed quiet for a long time, long enough for me to understand he would never answer. Nicole, let's talk about something else. The sunset fell against the side of his face, dim and cruel. I tugged at the hem of his sleeve again, and asked in a low voice, then, will you ever leave me? No, this time. The answer was firm and certain, but I think I want to leave you. Samuel. Chapter 11. Samuel started spending more and more time with that girl. She clung to him constantly, and he, as if helpless, couldn't push her away. Slowly, inevitably, they grew closer. That day, I went to his university again to find him, only to see that she was already seated beside him, dressed in her usual white dress. I let out a deep sigh. My fingers rested on the doorknob for a while, but in the end, I pulled back and walked away from the corridor. I wandered aimlessly around his campus. To be honest, I'd forgotten most of my own university memories, except one, the person who had filled most of my youth. He always stood at a distance, watching me, tall, aloof, cold. He rarely smiled, rarely spoke. His name was Jonathan. Jonathan is dead. He died in a vast, desolate field of snow. 6 years ago. We were skiing together when an accident happened. To save me, he was buried forever beneath a 1,000-year-old glacier. Samuel looks so much like him. They even have the same small mole at the corner of their eyes, but one always smiled, and the other never did. The moment I first saw Samuel, my heart nearly stopped. Even if he wasn't him, just to be near that familiar face, I was willing to give everything. But now, after all that, this is where I've ended up. I laughed bitterly to myself. I probably don't even have the face to see Jonathan again. If he knew I had fallen in love with his look-alike, he'd probably be furious even in the afterlife. But I also know he's long gone. The dead don't come back. I was the one who handled all his funeral arrangements. I walked toward a pond inside the campus. The midday sun filtered through the leaves, casting broken shadows on the passers-by. In the distance, the hum of cicadas slowly rose with the heat. And then, when something utterly impossible happened, my brain went completely blank. Like being struck by lightning. The dead don't come back, right? Then why, on that stone bridge in the hazy afternoon light, did I see the silhouette I've dreamed about 100 times? Samuel had gone the other way. He was supposed to be with Olivia. He couldn't be here. The figure was far away, but I couldn't have mistaken it. That outline, I've dreamed of it too many times to be wrong. Just then, a crowd of college students returned from their research trip, crossing the bridge in groups. The figure turned and disappeared into the crowd. I didn't think. I just ran, pushed through the mass of people, surrounded by laughter and youthful voices. I couldn't be wrong. That was him. It had to be him. But how could it be him? He's gone. He's long gone. Finally. I pushed past the last few shadows and came to a halt. There was nothing in front of me. Spring wind stirred the cherry trees, scattering blossoms all over the ground. I stood there, and all I could hear was the thunderous sound of my own heartbeat. Chapter 12. I returned home in a daze. There were 2 new postcards in the mailbox. It took me a moment to remember. They were the ones Samuel and I had sent from that old temple 3 months ago. The temple had a saying: if you made a wish there and mailed a postcard, the wish would come true once it arrived. The postcards were a little worn, but the writing was still legible. Mine read, "I hope Samuel and I can be happy every day." As for Samuel's, I hadn't looked at what he wrote back then. Now it sat quietly at the bottom of the pile. I couldn't resist. I flipped it over. Just then, a call came in. It was Samuel. I answered while staring at the card. "Nicole, I have a meeting tonight. I'll be back a bit late." His voice was as gentle and unhurried as always. I rubbed my fingers against the paper, suddenly unable to make a sound. After a moment, I managed a faint mem. He thought I was upset, so he softened his voice, coaxing me, "Go ahead and eat something first. I'll make you something nice when I'm back, okay?" I hung up, still staring at the card. Finally, the tears fell, smudging the ink on the words. They say when the postcard arrives, your wish comes true. I remembered, on that day, after I wrote mine, I went to find Samuel and wrapped my arms around his neck. When he lowered his head and gently kissed me, I saw it. On his postcard, he'd written, "I hope to get back together with Olivia." I stood in front of my closet and pulled out all my clothes. There really wasn't much to take. I loved photography, so I grabbed my camera, left the keys on the entryway shelf, and walked out of the home we'd shared for 4 years. As I reached the roadside, the spring breeze chilled my bare calves. I'd brought everything, except an umbrella. I wandered through the streets with no destination, no plan. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to see Samuel. I could already imagine what he'd say. He always thought he could win me back with that soft voice of his. And the sad part is, I really did fall for him. That's why it hurts so much. My eyes burned from holding back the tears. Near our apartment, there was a small park. I walked there. The night breeze stirred the fallen leaves. Then, at some point, raindrops began to fall on my face. I'd brought everything, yet forgotten a single umbrella. I sat on a bench in the park, the rain soaking through my clothes. My phone buzzed. Several messages came in. Samuel's. He'd noticed I wasn't home. "Where are you? It's raining. You didn't take an umbrella. Nicole?" Life always finds a way to surprise you. Like right now, my phone was still buzzing, messages popping up one after another, but the rain above me had stopped. Someone stood in front of me, holding an umbrella. I looked up, stunned. I couldn't speak. That indifferent gaze fell on me, sharp features, just like 6 years ago. I hadn't imagined it this afternoon. I really hadn't. The man who had fallen into the glacier 6 years ago to save me was now standing here, hands in his pockets, staring down at me. After a long silence, he finally spoke, his voice calm, unreadable. "So, while I was gone all these years, how fun was it playing with a stand-in? Nicole?" Chapter 13. I blinked once, then again. I didn't know if it was the rain or my mind playing tricks on me, but he was still there, holding the umbrella, standing right in front of me, not moving. "Jonathan?" I opened my mouth, a name I'd thought of day after day, yet saying it out loud made it feel so unfamiliar. He looked down at me. Jonathan had always been like a block of ice, silent, distant. If he hadn't thrown himself off that cliff beneath the glacier to save me, I might have never believed he loved me. But, does resurrection really exist in this world? Rain pattered against the umbrella. He hadn't changed at all, still quiet, still watching me with that calm, unreadable gaze. "You, where have you been? How are you still alive? Are you really Jonathan?" There were too many questions, all jammed in my throat. I didn't even know where to begin. So what finally came out was a single, trembling sentence. "Are you okay?" "I'm doing fine," he answered flatly, seriously. Then he chuckled, almost mockingly. "I'd say you've been doing pretty well, too. I died, and you found yourself a replacement. Did I even matter to you?" I froze, unable to respond. "Where have you been all these years?" I asked, this time with my head raised. But now he was the one who went silent. So it was fake. Your death, you faked it, didn't you? You lied to me. Do you know how devastated I was when I thought you died? All these years, nothing. No message. No word. What was I supposed to do? You have no idea how much I missed you. I looked up at him, voice rising, but I swallowed the last words back down. Forget it. Samuel and Jonathan were the same. One used me as a stand-in for his first love. The other disappeared for 6 years, lying to me the whole time. You too. The rain got heavier. Without thinking, I stepped out from under the umbrella. I don't want either of you anymore. My whole life was a tangled mess. So many things spinning in my head, things I couldn't understand or even try to. Someone like me. I always run away when things get too hard. But this time, a hand grabbed my wrist from behind, tightly. I'm sorry, Nicole. There are things I just can't tell you. In the downpour, his fingers brushed gently over my inner wrist. I turned slightly, struggling to ask. Then, will you leave again, Jonathan? The rain became a curtain of strings. His eyes pierced the night with a sadness so fine, so tightly woven. I never left you, Nicole. Chapter 14. I went back with Jonathan to the old apartment we used to rent. The place hadn't been sealed up. He told me he came back every month to clean. But as for what he'd been doing all these years, he still wouldn't say. We basically grew up together. There was a whole cabinet filled with memories of us. Jonathan's old soccer ball, Polaroid photos we'd taken, and a few worn-out notebooks. Hey, Jonathan, this looks like the novel I wrote in high school. I waved it at him. His eyes skimmed it briefly, then he pulled me into his arms. You said you wanted to be a novelist. That's why you chose Chinese literature in college. My memories of high school and college are hazy now. I stood on a stool to reach one of the older notebooks when he called from near the kitchen. Dinner's ready, Nicole. 4 dishes and a soup. Jonathan's cooking was amazing, which made mine look even worse. I always ate his food. He cooked, and I washed the dishes after. Life felt like it had fallen back into place, like nothing had ever happened. No cracks, no missing years. Jonathan said he wouldn't leave again, and he didn't. Aside from still not telling me what kind of work he did, everything else felt fine. For me, just having him back was enough. Saturday, we went shopping together, bought daily necessities at the mall. It seemed like some sort of holiday. The place was packed. I held his hand as we moved through the crowd. And then, suddenly, my reflection in the glass locked eyes with another person's. I had almost forgotten that rainy night. Samuel hadn't contacted me at all since then. Now, by his side, was a chatty girl. Looked like they got back together. I couldn't quite describe how I felt. To me, Samuel was like a damp autumn rain, sticky and chilling to the bone. Just then, I heard a click. Jonathan gently tightened his grip on my fingers. What are you looking at? I shook my head, and walked into the crowd beside him. Chapter 15. There was a new, extremely popular ice cream shop in the mall. Jonathan told me to wait and went to stand in line for me. From the 7th floor, the glass wall offered a full view of the city, cars rushing by, crowds moving like rivers. I stared out blankly, taking in everything and nothing, until someone sat down, 2 seats away from me. She's attempted suicide twice. I couldn't do anything else, so I kept her around. Nicole. Things between her and me, they'll never go back to how they were. It's not what you think. Samuel sat there, eyes on the coffee in his hands. He didn't look at me, but somehow it felt like he was talking to me. I didn't know what to say. It was strange. Samuel's presence felt like a dream. I used to love him so much. Yet now, sitting here, I felt nothing. He finished speaking and left. I stayed there until the sun dipped below the buildings. Then, a deep red scoop of ice cream entered my view. I took a bite. It wasn't sweet, sour plum. Jonathan sat beside me and asked if it was good. I nodded. Honestly, I had this strange feeling, like I'd forgotten something really important. But no one else cared. So I decided I wouldn't care either. Moments later, fireworks lit up the evening sky. Jonathan pulled me into his arms and gently rubbed my head. Nicole, don't be afraid. No matter who you are, I'll always be by your side. So then, if I had opened that old notebook 3 weeks ago, I would have been shocked to see that the very first sentence of the story I wrote was, "She posted her boyfriend's song online, only to have people discover it was written for his first love." Epilogue. I am a silent tree. You are the free wind. Chapter 1. Jonathan first met Olivia when he was 7 years old, standing beside a moving truck in front of his house. The girl wore a short-sleeved shirt, her ponytail bouncing in the sunlight, a popsicle tucked between her lips. She smiled at him, eyebrows curved gently. Later that night, as he lay in bed, he thought about it for a long time. That must have been her way of saying hello. Soon after, she became his neighbor, and from then on, every time he opened his front door, he would see her radiant, beaming smile. Chapter 2. Jonathan was a slow and quiet boy. His teachers said he didn't like to talk. His friends called him that walking ice cube. Some classmates said he was just pretending to be cool, so he wasn't very popular. In middle school, he was even cornered by a group of older bullies. That day, Olivia appeared like a whirlwind, pulled him away, and called for the security guard and the duty teacher. After that, the two of them grew closer, chewing bubble gum. Olivia threw her arm over his shoulder. From now on, I've got your back. Chapter 3. By the time Jonathan got to high school, his features had matured. Suddenly, he had a flood of admirers. Even girls from nearby schools came just to catch a glimpse of him. But all that attention terrified him. The girls at school called him the cold and distant prince. But only he knew the truth, he just didn't know how to talk to strangers. Nowadays, people would probably say he had serious social anxiety. Thankfully, he had Olivia and the piano. Olivia was a non-stop bubble machine, beautiful, energetic, and always full of whimsical, brilliant ideas. She was nothing like him, and the piano, that was his sanctuary. He had an extraordinary talent for it, and the school even cleared out a special room just for him to practice. On weekends, Olivia would show up with popsicles, swinging by the piano room. She'd sit beside him and listen quietly for a while, but soon she'd get restless, pull a notebook from her bag, and shove it in front of him. "Hey, look, I wrote a new story. What do you think?" Back then, writing stories in notebooks was kind of trendy. This one's called a substitute romance. Jonathan, do you know what that is? It's when the male lead is actually in love with someone who just resembles the heroine, and he treats the heroine like a stand-in. Should I name the male lead Samuel? Jonathan didn't pay much attention to what she was saying. He was too busy watching how the spring sunlight kissed her lips, soft, sweet. They looked very kissable. Just the thought made the tips of his ears turn red. He cursed himself for being such a hopeless pervert. Chapter 4. Olivia's dream was to become a novelist. That's why she chose literature as her major in college. What she didn't know was that, during the last year of high school, Jonathan secretly checked her application list, and quietly changed his own preferences to match hers. When the results came out, and they both got into the same university, she jumped on him with joy. That evening, their classmates went out for drinks and karaoke. Everyone got pretty drunk. At some point, one of Olivia's best friends shouted at Jonathan, "Jonathan, you're such an emotionally dead ice block. Olivia's been chasing you for so long, don't tell me you've never felt anything?" He blinked, buzzed from the alcohol, but still didn't fully understand what she meant. It wasn't until everyone was leaving, the summer night buzzing with cicadas, that it hit him. They were standing under a dim streetlight, about to part ways, when she tugged on his sleeve. "Jonathan, would it kill you to like me back, even just a little?" She looked up at him, eyes red, and something inside him snapped. Right then and there, he kissed her under the street lamp. After that summer, neither of them ever got a full night's sleep again. Chapter 5. Jonathan had a secret, one that Olivia never knew. He hated himself. He hated how dull he was, how bad he was at speaking, how he couldn't even comfort her properly. He'd overheard her friends say more than once, "Why is your boyfriend always so cold? He looks so grumpy all the time." Eventually, he took all of those feelings and turned them into a song. He played it for her during the school's anniversary celebration. Somehow, the song caught on. It went semi-viral. People contacted him to buy the rights, asking to re-record it, but he refused, even if it meant offending them. College life for the two of them wasn't always smooth, but their little fights never got too serious. Overall, they lived peacefully. After graduation, they rented a small apartment close to their jobs. Their careers were taking off, and everything seemed to be going well. So they planned a year-end ski trip to the snowy mountains. They had no idea that would be the beginning of a nightmare. Chapter 6. Jonathan remembered that night clearly. It was the biggest fight they had ever had since getting together. It started because one of the girls in their tour group seemed to like him. She kept sticking close to him. He had never experienced that kind of direct attention before and didn't know how to reject her properly. Meanwhile, Olivia was already in a bad mood. Her latest manuscript had just been rejected. When she saw the girl hanging around him, she lost her temper, and Jonathan got caught in the blast. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He felt he'd been obvious enough in rejecting the girl. He thought Olivia was overreacting. She thought he was defending the other girl. One word led to another, and the argument escalated fast. Even the next morning, during the planned hike up the snowy mountain, the atmosphere was tense. Olivia was at the front of the group. He stayed at the back. The trekking pole struck the hard snow as he thought about how to apologize to her. A sudden, thunderous roar echoed through the valley, and then it happened. 100 meters of snow came crashing down. No one saw it coming. This was a tourist trail, known for being safe and stable. No one could have predicted an avalanche. The earth trembled. It was like the sky had roared in fury. A curtain of white fell from above, and everyone ran for their lives, downhill. Only he ran uphill, going against the flood of people. His only thought was to find Olivia. She had been at the front. Finally, near a pile of broken rocks, he found her lying on the ground. She had fallen, trampled by the rushing crowd, unable to get up. He ran straight to her and shielded her with his body. Then, the avalanche swallowed them. He didn't remember much after that. Maybe his final movement had given her hope. He vaguely recalled her dragging him, crying, trembling, saying, "Jonathan, I won't fight with you ever again. Jonathan, it was my fault. Wake up, please wake up." Chapter 7. He did wake up, but the girl remained in the ICU. Later, the doctors told him it was the girl who had dragged his body out of the endless snowy forest. Inch by inch, no one knew what she went through in those 7 days. There wasn't a single part of her body that wasn't injured. Her fingernails were completely gone, worn away from digging him out of the icy snow with her bare hands. Her vital signs were nearly non-existent. Those who found them said, it looked like one corpse dragging another. She became a vegetative patient. She slept for 2 years. During that time, Jonathan fell into depression. He attempted suicide. He survived. Someone rescued him. After that, he stayed by her bedside every day, talking to her, every single day, like two lonely ghosts, drifting together. He stopped hoping she would wake up, but one day, she did. She woke up, but she couldn't go back to who she was. Her brain had been severely damaged. During surgery, the doctors had no choice but to remove some brain tissue. No one knew what the long-term consequences would be. For the first 2 months, her IQ was equivalent to a 4 or 5-year-old child. She would suddenly throw tantrums, scream for no reason, wet herself. That's when Jonathan first learned to smile. He started coaxing her like a child, with gentleness and warmth, dressing her, feeding her, caring for her. This man, once so distant and silent, slowly became soft and patient in front of her. Later, she began to regain some awareness, but her memory was chaotic. Sometimes she remembered him, sometimes not. Her temper gradually wore down his own. He became the gentlest version of himself. About a year and 6 months after she woke up, she seemed mostly normal again, but then, she started having vivid and uncontrollable fantasies. The doctors called it delusional disorder, likely due to the missing brain tissue. She began mistaking people around her for characters from her imagination. She even believed herself to be part of the novels she had once written. That's when he gained a new name, Samuel. She was no longer his Olivia. Now, she was his Nicole. Her fantasies would often blend real-life details into wild and unpredictable. Even he didn't know what she'd imagine next. Sometimes he'd just be eating a meal, and she'd suddenly say there was some white moonlight sitting beside him. And if anyone dared to correct her, told her that wasn't real, She'd become hysterical, agitated. It was an impossible situation. She was willful, irrational, sometimes even ran away from him. His friends started to intervene. Why do you keep spoiling that little lunatic? Can she even marry you like this? Have children with you? One day, she's going to forget you entirely. He never argued back. One summer afternoon, under the perfect sun, the girl suddenly climbed a tree, hands in his pockets. Jonathan stood below, looking up at her. What are you doing up there? I'm the Empress. I'm here to escape the summer heat. She waved her bedsheet sleeves like flowing silks and raised her hand dramatically. Jonathan, approach your queen. The man's smiling eyes bent with affection. He played along, mimicking the tone of a palace servant. Yes, your majesty, your humble servant arrives. The cicadas hummed gently in the background. He scooped her into his arms, only to be swatted with mild disdain. It was okay. The things you forget, I'll remember them for you.